They always say you shouldn't start a big week running on empty. I guess that makes sense. Sleep deprivation skews your judgment, dulls your reactions, makes you see things that might not even be there. That's the official line anyway. The thing the cops muttered when I tried explaining what happened to me that Monday morning in Jacksonville. But I know what I saw. I flew in from Dallas on a red-eye, landed at Jack's just past 6 a.m. after an overnight delay in Atlanta. I'd been up nearly 30 hours by the time I got to baggage claim. My name's Daniel Ross, 32, single junior audit lead at a mid-tier logistics firm. Not the kind of guy people remember. I was in town to evaluate a regional division's operational compliance. Basically a week of spreadsheets, late emails, and half-hearted client dinners. My hotel wouldn't check me in until noon, and the coffee from the airport vending machine had already done damage to my stomach. I just needed something solid, someplace quiet to collect myself before I started pretending to care about freight margins and outdated scanner logs. My Lyft driver, Reggie, was an older guy. Gray beard, baseball cap, slow drawl. Nice enough. I must have looked like hell when I climbed into the back seat because he said, "Long trip, huh?" "Red eye out of Dallas," I muttered. "No sleep." He nodded. "This early on a Monday?" "I know a place. Wendy's over on San Jose, opens early, quiet. Locals barely go." It sounded fine. I didn't need gourmet. I needed coffee, a booth, and maybe Wi-Fi if I was lucky. When we pulled in, the parking lot was empty except for a dented Civic and a FedEx van idling across the lot. The sky was still that weird early morning gray. I thanked Reggie and dragged my carry-on toward the entrance. The moment I stepped inside, I felt it, the wrongness. The heater was either off or broken. The air was thin, like the cold in an office at night when everyone's gone home. No music played, just a quiet buzzing from somewhere in the back. Maybe the freezer unit. It wasn't creepy exactly, just off. A woman stood behind the counter. She was pale, red hair tied into a loose bun, early to mid-30s by my guess. Her name tag said, Mara. Her uniform looked slightly faded, like it had been washed one too many times. She smiled, but it was hollow. Not rude, just distant, like customer service had become muscle memory. "Rough morning?" she asked. I gave a tired laugh. "Feels like I haven't slept in a year. Just a black coffee and whatever's hot." She nodded slowly, tapping the register. "Here on business?" I hesitated. "Yeah, week-long audit. Boring stuff." "Audits aren't boring," she said without looking up. "They expose what's hidden." I let out another awkward chuckle and glanced around. The dining area was spotless but lifeless. Tables wiped, chairs pushed in. No signs of the breakfast rush. No hash brown smell. No sizzling fryer sounds. Mara turned and walked toward the back. I watched her movements. Slow, careful, like she was thinking through every step. She glanced toward the kitchen, then back at the coffee pot. She poured the brew and slipped something, small, white, into the cup. A packet, maybe? Creamer? But she never asked. I leaned forward. "Hey, what was that you put in my coffee?" She turned back, still holding the cup. "Just sweetener. You looked like you needed it." I didn't ask for sweetener. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I know. That was the first time my stomach twisted, not from hunger or caffeine withdrawal, but from instinct. Something was wrong. And then the door jingled. 2 men walked in, no jackets despite the morning chill. One wore sunglasses. At 6:55 a.m. They didn't order, just sat in a corner booth and stared at their phones. Except, they weren't scrolling. No finger movement, no screen tapping, just holding and watching. I checked my phone. 1% battery. Useless. I forced a smile, pulled the phone to my ear. "Yeah, I'm here. You're outside? Cool, I'll come out." My voice was too loud, too fake. But I didn't care. I needed out. "You're leaving?" Mara asked softly. "Yeah, I'll come back later, maybe." "You should drink something, she said, voice gentle, almost hopeful. "Maybe later." I backed toward the door. One of the men stood. I didn't wait. I pushed out into the lot, heart hammering. I cut across the lot, ducked behind a black SUV at the nearby gas station. When I turned back, Mara and the two men were at the window staring, expressionless, like they were waiting. The gas station was mostly empty inside. A cashier stood behind the counter reading a lottery ticket. I half-sprinted inside, panting, sweat cutting through my shirt. The guy looked up as I approached. I think something's wrong with that Wendy's," I gasped. He blinked. "What?" I pointed behind me. "I think they drugged me, or I don't know. There's people there. 2 guys, a woman. Something is wrong." He looked past me, bored, then picked up the phone. "You want me to call the cops?" "Yes, please." I slid to the floor near the bottled water cooler. My hands shook. I kept glancing at the front of the Wendy's, expecting one of them to come walking across the lot. But no one did. When the police arrived 15 minutes later, lights flashing, they moved fast. 2 officers approached the restaurant with hands on their holsters. One went around back. A minute passed, then another. Then one of them came back shaking his head. "You sure you got the address right?" he asked. I stood. "What?" "That Wendy's is closed. Hasn't been open since the beginning of the month." I stared at him. I was just in there. He looked at me like I'd been up for days, and I had. Closed for renovation. No lights on, chairs stacked. Sign says I ran across the lot with them. He wasn't lying. The lights were off. The place looked abandoned. A handwritten note was taped to the glass door. "Back soon. We know who you are." I backed away, my blood cold. Name was Mara. There were people. I talked to them. She made coffee. Her. The officer was polite but firm. "Sir, there's no one named Mara in the employee records. That location doesn't reopen for another 3 weeks." "No transaction on your card either," the other one added, checking a notepad. They didn't say it out loud, but I could see it on their faces. Sleep-deprived guy sees shadows where there are none. Nothing criminal, just stress. But I knew. I spent the rest of that Monday in a fog. I checked into the hotel around noon and collapsed onto the bed fully clothed, my carry-on still upright by the door. The moment my head hit the pillow, it felt like I hadn't slept in weeks, but I couldn't actually fall asleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mara's face, blank, too calm. I remembered the way her voice didn't match the words, too slow, like she was talking from a different place, trying to sound normal. I didn't tell my coworkers what happened. What would I even say? That a closed Wendy's served me coffee and a quiet red-haired woman with no employee record slipped something into it? That 2 men watched me with phones they never touched? No. I showed up to the audit meeting at 3 p.m. and nodded through budget reviews like nothing had happened. The entire week I avoided restaurants, ate protein bars from my suitcase and vending machine snacks from the hotel hallway. Every night I made sure my deadbolt was locked and kept the blinds shut. I even wedged a chair under the door handle one night, not because I thought Mara or the 2 men were coming, but because I didn't know what else to do with the anxiety crawling under my skin. But the weird part? I never got sick. Whatever was or wasn't in that coffee, I didn't drink it, I didn't feel drugged. But I still couldn't shake the feeling that I had come too close to something, like brushing up against live wire. You don't get electrocuted, but you remember the hum. Wednesday night, I walked past the gas station again after dinner with clients. Didn't go in, just walked. But when I looked across the street at the Wendy's, it was still dark. Still closed for renovation. The same note was taped to the door. "Back soon. We know who you are." I took a picture of it that time. Zoomed in. The handwriting was blocky, uneven. It didn't look like it was written in a rush, but it wasn't neat either. The part that hit me hardest? It didn't say, "We're watching." That would have been too obvious. It said, "We know." as if they weren't tracking me but had already decided something about me. That's what kept me up at night. Not what almost happened, but the idea that I had walked into something premeditated, like I'd stumbled across a stage right before the performance began. The next day, I asked the hotel manager casually if he knew what was going on with the Wendy's across the street. He said, "Which one?" I blinked. "The one on San Jose, just past the gas station." He looked confused. "I don't think there's one open over there. There's a Chick-fil-A and a CVS, but that Wendy's shut down a while ago. Plumbing issue or something." "No, right next to the FedEx drop box," I pressed. He thought for a second, then shook his head. "Oh, that one. It's been closed for months. Don't think it's reopening, actually. Corporate pulled out. Place is probably being sold." My stomach turned. I lied. Told him I must have mixed up the streets, but I hadn't. I could draw the floor plan of that place in my sleep. I knew how it smelled. I remembered the pattern of tile on the wall by the drink machine. No hallucination could give me that. And still, nobody believed me. I flew home Friday afternoon. The audit ended without incident, just another uneventful line item on my career timeline. Jacksonville was behind me, or so I told myself. But what happened that week didn't stay there. It came home with me, slowly, quietly, like mold in the walls. First, it was the dreams. Not nightmares exactly, just unsettling loops. Mara standing behind the counter, not speaking, just watching. Then the two men sitting in the booth, their phones glowing with blank white light. Sometimes in the dream, the restaurant was full of people, all frozen. Forks held midair, cups hovering at lips. But only Mara and the men moved, and they were always moving toward me. I started drinking too much coffee just to stay awake longer. One night, I woke up convinced someone was standing at the foot of my bed. Heart pounding, I flicked on the light. Nothing. I searched the apartment, checked the locks 3 times. It was nothing. But the feeling stayed with me. What really got to me wasn't fear. It was certainty. A quiet, gnawing belief that what happened at that Wendy's was real, and worse. I wasn't the first. I started digging, local blogs, business closures, Yelp reviews, anything. A few Reddit posts mentioned weird staffing at that same Wendy's. One person claimed they were served by a woman who never blinked. Another said their receipt had no total, just their full name, printed in all caps. Another user asked if it was part of some viral marketing stunt. But those posts were months old. No responses. I even called the Jacksonville Police Department to follow up on my report. They had no record. "Are you sure it wasn't a prank call?" the clerk asked. "We get a lot of those." I hung up and stared at my phone. No transaction, no police report, no record, no proof I'd ever been there. But the photo of the note on the door was still in my phone. And one night, about 2 weeks later, I noticed something I hadn't before. The handwritten message. "Back soon. We know who you are." Below it, in faint pencil, was something else, barely legible, slanted. "Room for one more." Certainly. I didn't show that photo to anyone, not at first. What was I going to say? "Hey, check out this creepy note on a closed fast food joint I hallucinated after 30 hours with no sleep." I wasn't ready for the kind of looks that came with that, but I stared at that image for hours, zoomed in, enhanced shadows, tried to make sense of that faint message scribbled underneath the printed part. "Room for one more." Like it was an invitation or a warning, or both. Something about the handwriting felt rushed, desperate even. Like someone wrote it in a moment of clarity before things went dark. A few days later, I reached out to Reggie, the Lyft driver who'd taken me there. His number was still in my app history. I figured maybe he'd heard rumors. Maybe he knew something about the area. At the very least, I wanted to confirm I hadn't imagined the entire thing. He answered on the second ring. "Reggie, hey, you picked me up at the airport in Jacksonville a couple weeks ago. Took me to a Wendy's on San Jose early in the morning, remember? There was a pause. You sure it was me? He said slowly. Positive. We talked about how dead the morning shift was, and you said that Wendy's was a good quiet spot. Another pause. That Wendy's? Man, that place has been shut down a while now. I haven't dropped anyone off there in months, maybe longer. No, I said, sharper than I meant to. You took me there. I was inside. You waited in the car for like 5 minutes before pulling off. I saw you through the window. He didn't respond right away. I don't remember that, he said finally. Maybe you got the wrong guy. He hung up. The call log showed it lasted under 2 minutes, and now the number wouldn't reconnect, just straight to voicemail. I didn't try again. The dreams got worse after that. I started waking up at 3:17 a.m. almost every night. Always the same time, always with the same taste in my mouth, metallic, like blood and copper. One night I woke up and smelled something faint but familiar. Coffee, not my brew, not the French roast I made every morning out of habit. This was different, cheap, watery, burnt at the edges, the exact kind served in fast food joints across America. I searched my apartment from top to bottom. Nothing, but the smell was real. I know it was. Like Mara had been there, watching me sleep, cup in hand, waiting. That weekend, I booked a one-way ticket back to Jacksonville. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even pack a bag. I just needed to see it again. I needed to know if it was still there, or if the building had been razed to the ground like I half hoped. It was still there, exactly the same. Chairs stacked, windows dark, note still taped to the door, the original one. But the scribbled pencil line was gone. Someone had wiped it off. No one was inside. No one in the parking lot. The gas station across the street was busy as usual. Life moved on. But that building, that place, was still waiting. I stood there for maybe 5 minutes, trying to gather the courage to walk up to the door again. I didn't. I couldn't. I turned and left. But before I reached the corner, I heard the faint buzz of something turning on behind me, like a refrigerator compressor kicking in, or a freezer door sealing shut. I didn't look back. There's a kind of quiet horror in being dismissed. When something unexplainable happens, something that shakes your sense of normalcy, and no one believes you, it's like it didn't happen at all. Like your fear, your trauma, your instincts don't count because they don't leave a paper trail. I still don't know what that Wendy's really was. Maybe it was an abandoned building being used by people for something illegal. Maybe I stumbled into a drug operation or a cult or a trap meant for someone else. Or maybe it was something worse, something older, something that doesn't show up on tax records or Yelp pages, something that waits for people who've run themselves ragged, who've stopped paying attention, people just like me. I haven't told this story to anyone in real life. You're the first. But if you're reading this, maybe that means someone finally believes me, or maybe it just means you're next. Either way, remember this. Never trust comfort when it comes too easily. Never drink what you didn't ask for. And never ignore that feeling, that subtle twist in your gut when something's off. That's not fear. That's instinct. It's trying to save you. And if you ever walk into a place that's supposed to be closed and someone inside already knows your name, leave immediately. Don't look back. Don't ask questions. Don't give them a chance to smile. I never expected working early morning shifts at Wendy's to teach me anything beyond making perfect hash browns or managing the frayed patience of bleary-eyed customers. But that was before my teaching position vanished, before my fiancée walked out, before my confidence unraveled under overdue rent notices and harsh lectures I gave myself in front of the bathroom mirror. I am Jenna Calloway, 31 now, and every morning I show up here gives me one small victory over the chaos of my life, because at least behind this counter I still have control. Every coffee, every sandwich, every clean table is a puzzle piece I haven't messed up yet. But on that January morning, Wednesday, 6:35 a.m., at the Wendy's on Thunderbird Road in Glendale, Something shifted. The radio was silent. The usual buzz of the soda machine paused. The dining room felt hollow, expectant, and I had no idea I was about to face something I couldn't scrub away with a rag. The pre-shift lights hummed overhead as I unlocked the front door at 6:10. The parking lot was empty except for a single gray sedan idling near the gas pump. Arizona winter doesn't bite like other places, but the air still carried a chill early in the morning. I ran my hands over the counters, rearranged napkins, and watched the digital clock tick towards 6:35, my favorite time of day. The world hadn't fully woken yet. That's when the door opened again. 2 adults stepped in, dressed too sharply for this hour. The man's shirt was crisp, hair slicked back as though styled the night before. The woman had dark glasses and rigid posture that made me hesitate. They didn't order, they just stood near the door. A little girl followed behind them, maybe 7, in a bright red jacket that popped against the neutral tones of the restaurant. Her hair was tangled. She clutched the woman's sleeve so tightly I could see the knuckles pale, bruises faint in muted purplish lines around her wrist. A chill slid down my spine. I took a slow breath and stepped forward. "Hi there. Can I show you our breakfast menu?" The man glanced up, cold and clipped. "Just coffee. We're waiting for someone." The woman's voice had no warmth. "Black. 2 sugars." The girl didn't speak. She looked smaller than the rest of them, lost, withdrawn. I said, "Coming right up." Even though my heart pounded so loud I worried she might hear it. I made the drinks while watching her reflection in the mirror near the napkin station. Her gaze flicked quickly to herself each time she lifted her eyes. She seemed to be trying to memorize her own face. I leaned closer to Noah, the fry cook. He looked older than me by a few years, a kind man with a gentle voice. "Noah," I whispered, "watch that table. The woman in glasses and her girl." He glanced over and nodded. I grabbed the coffee cups with shaking hands. The man stepped out, phone pressed to his ear. I took a chance. "Jacket. You must be really warm." "Hi, sweetie. That's a lovely red." The girl flinched and looked at the woman. "Don't talk to her," the woman snapped. Dead set. I backed off softly, stepping away behind the counter. Something about the silence felt thick, heavy, like waiting for thunder in a clear sky. She, my voice trembled just thinking it, walked them toward the restroom. The woman said, "Bathroom?" to the girl in a tone that brooked no argument. The girl hesitated, long enough for me to see her gripping that red sleeve white-knuckled. Then she moved. When they entered, I stayed behind the counter, took a breath, and whispered to Noah, "Call 911. Tell them I think we might have an abduction. Just say it quietly. Don't second guess." He nodded. His face was grim. He reached for the store phone. I swallowed and walked toward the restroom. Inside, the little girl was washing her hands, trembling. The woman stood by the door. I knelt gently beside her, whispering, "Are you okay? Do you know these people?" The girl looked up. Tears pooled in her eyes. She nodded. No words. Nothing. The woman stepped forward. "Get out." I stood, kept my voice calm. "I'm sorry." Then held the door open. Once outside, the man burst in. He walked toward me fast. I braced between him and the girl. "She's not going with you," I said softly. He frowned. "She's our niece." "She can't go anywhere until the police arrive," I replied. My throat burned. He took a step. His hand twitched near his jacket pocket. Then flashing lights burst across the windshield and sparkling reflections in the glass. A tumble of footsteps from police. He and the woman bolted out the side door. The girl fell into my arms. The officer asked me to step back, offered a blanket to the girl, and led her out gently. She leaned heavy in my arms like a rag doll that finally let itself collapse. Paramedics checked her over. She didn't speak, didn't eat, just stared, wide-eyed. I recognized the look, shock, fear, relief, compressed into a single expression. At former custody cases on the police tablet, I saw her picture. Same red jacket, same messy hair, same bruises. She'd been missing nearly 2 weeks, abducted during a custody exchange in Nevada. Her mother had filed missing person reports that morning. The bulletins only just circulated in Arizona. I collapsed into a folding chair behind the police barrier and exhaled all the tension I hadn't realized I'd held. I had done one small thing right, and it felt both enormous and impossible to prove. Travis came by, eyes angry at how quiet it got afterward. He confirmed that 911 called back. Police thanked him. The news crew hadn't arrived yet. They planned coverage, but I couldn't focus on any of it. All I could hear was the girl's breathing, slow and even, in the ambulance cot parked at the front. Driving home after my shift, dawn was soft and rose-tinted. The red jacket silhouette of that girl haunted me in the streetlights. I didn't sleep well. My phone chimed that evening. A message from the precinct. They'd located the mother, arranged safe custody. The girl would be going home. Her name was Clara. Her mother's expected to fly in from Nevada that night. I stirred with relief and something like regret. Not for the mother, but for how many others might walk into diners or gas stations in quiet mornings and be invisible. The days afterward felt strange. I went back to early shifts out of routine, but the restaurant seemed sharper somehow. Shadows seemed brighter. Parts of the floor were easier to trip over. Eyes in the parking lot felt suspicious. My grip on the mop shook sometimes, not from exhaustion, but awareness. I kept watching the doorbell chime through each shift. True customers drifted in, regulars who didn't notice me watching them back. I noticed arms carrying coffee, hands holding purses tightly. Some people looked at the napkin mirror briefly. Others hunched down quickly, gazes that flitted away, as if forgetting someone held the focus. That evening, Travis dropped off a small gift. He leaned in the break room doorway. "You saved her. Don't forget that." Inside the tissue-wrapped box was a red ribbon tied in a bow. No note. I smoothed it between my fingers, turned it over. I started carrying it on my keychain the next morning. A quiet anchor. I went home and looked at my mother's old birthday card from years ago, the one I'd packed away after that fight. My contact list had her name listed, but I never called. I stared at the card, the ribbon burning in my palm. I texted her the ribbon picture that night. It reminds me never to look away. It was a small step. No apologies yet. No forgiveness. Just one line sent to a number I almost deleted. Weeks later, I got a call from Detective Harris. He said Clara's mother was grateful and had insisted to precinct leadership that I personally be thanked. They offered a commendation, city recognition, maybe local TV. I declined politely. I didn't want noise. I wanted quiet. I wanted that girl to be safe. I still wear the ribbon. I still come in early. Each countertop I wipe is a reminder that routine matters, that noticing matters, that reaching out, even if the kid looks scared or defensive or different, is better than passing by silently. Not every danger ends like a hero's moment. Some end quietly. A child safer because someone whispered and stood in between. Sometimes that's enough. Bravery doesn't always need applause. Sometimes it's the quietest voice in the room telling someone they matter when no one asked, and standing firm when it would have been easier to look away. We all carry invisible losses and memories, but recognizing someone else's hurt, especially in places of routine like breakfast lines and morning lights, can be the difference between silence and saving someone. Let your hesitation be a signal, not an excuse. If you'd told me a few years ago that I'd still be working the night shift at Wendy's, I probably would have laughed. Not because I thought I was better than it, but because I swore I'd never let it become permanent. I was 28, burned out, and running on fumes that December. 3 double shifts in a row, covering for people who called out sick, though I knew half of them were just ducking the holiday chaos. The week before Christmas brings out the worst in everyone. Impatient customers, sloppy coworkers, managers who suddenly find religion in budget reports and labor hour caps. That Sunday night, I wasn't even supposed to be there. I had a train to Dayton, leaving just after midnight to see my little brother. We hadn't been in the same room in 2 years. But then Travis, our night supervisor, called me while I was brushing my teeth and said, "Rachel, I know it's last minute, but Kayla bailed and Kevin's sick. Can you come in just a few hours?" I didn't say no. I never do. Maybe I hate disappointing people more than I hate disappointing myself. It was 10:45 p.m., and the dining room at our Broad Street location was mostly empty. A few scattered customers eating slowly, trying to stay warm. The cracked speaker above the soda machine was still playing Christmas music, some warbled version of Let It Snow. I was wiping down the corner tables, humming along to fill the silence. Travis was in the back rearranging frozen patties when the front door opened. He walked in like he didn't belong. Tall, maybe early 40s, button-up shirt slightly wrinkled, no jacket. It was 18 degrees outside. His shoes were damp like he'd walked a long way through snow, and his hair looked like it had been combed with his hands in a gas station mirror. "Evening," I said automatically. "Can I get you something?" He didn't speak for a moment, just stared at the lighted menu behind me, mouth slightly open. Then softly, "Just the pancakes." I blinked. "Minutes." "Sorry, we don't serve pancakes here. You might be thinking of IHOP. It's about 5. You served them before." He interrupted, eyes narrowing. My stomach dropped just a little. "No, sir. Wendy's has never served pancakes." His hand came up, finger pointing past me toward the corner booth. She brought them out. She smiled. I was here, right there. The weird thing wasn't what he said. It was how he said it. Like he was trying to make me remember something we both knew never happened. Like he was waiting for me to admit I was lying. I stayed polite. "Maybe you're thinking of a different place, it happens." He stepped forward once, his voice lowered. "I don't forget things. You think I'm stupid?" My heart skipped. Not because he was yelling, he wasn't, but because he was so sure. There was no slur in his words, no stink of alcohol, just this weird, controlled intensity. Behind me, I caught Travis's eyes through the little window in the kitchen door. I gave a small nod. He disappeared, probably to call someone. The man sat down in that same booth, started talking to himself. Low, uneven words. Smiled. No syrup. She lied. She lied. She then... He began humming, off-key, like a kid trying to remember a song he never actually learned. I stood still behind the counter, heart picking up speed. I should have left then, but I didn't. And that was the mistake. He was still muttering when he stood up again and walked to the counter. I took a step back. "I changed my mind," he said, staring through me. "I'll take a Frosty." I nodded. "Chocolate or vanilla?" He smiled slowly. "Surprise me." That smile felt wrong. Too wide, not joyful, not sarcastic, just empty. Like someone trying on a mask they didn't know how to wear. He leaned forward, close enough for me to smell something metallic on his breath like rust. He whispered, "You remind me of her." I didn't reply. I turned away to prep the Frosty, fingers shaking. My left wrist was still sore from the fryer burn I'd gotten earlier. I almost dropped the cup. Behind me, I heard the sound of glass exploding. I turned just in time to see the salt shaker bounce once, then scatter across the floor in white crystals and tiny shards. I jumped. Travis burst out from the back. "Sir, I need you to calm down." But the man wasn't done. He grabbed a tray, hard plastic and greasy, and hurled it at the soda machine. It hit one of the levers and soda sprayed out in a carbonated arc, splashing the floor and walls. People screamed. The 2 other customers bolted for the door without finishing their food. I reached for the store phone and dialed 911. My voice was steady in my head but trembling through the receiver. "Yes, this is Wendy's on Broad Street. There's a man in the dining room throwing things. He might be unstable. Please send someone." Travis was standing near the condiment station, holding a fire extinguisher like a weapon. The man climbed up onto the counter, not with a scream, not with some dramatic display, just crouched up there like a gargoyle, grinning. "She's hiding again," he said, his eyes locked on me. "She always hides." "Sir," Travis said, stepping forward. "You need to get down. Now." And then the man reached into his pocket. It wasn't a gun, thank God. But what he pulled out was somehow worse. A folded kitchen knife, small, rusted, not flicked open, just held carefully like it was something sacred. He didn't threaten us with it. He just stood there, smiling. After what felt like minutes, he stepped down and walked out the door. Calm, silent, gone. By the time the police got there, he had vanished. No license plate, no car, no name, just shattered glass, spilled soda, and me, shaking behind the counter with a Frosty cup still half full. The store looked like a war zone after he left. Soda soaked the tiles. The salt shaker had sprayed glass like shrapnel under the booths. Chairs were knocked sideways, but it wasn't the mess that got to me. It was the silence. Even the speaker had cut out. 1 minute it had been humming Jingle Bell Rock, and the next nothing. Just the buzzing of the fridge compressor, and Travis breathing hard like he'd just run a mile. The police took our statements. 2 officers, both looking tired and young. They asked all the usual questions. What did he look like? Did he smell like alcohol? Did he say anything threatening? He asked for pancakes, I said. Said I reminded him of someone. That made the female officer pause. Did he call you by name? No, I said, swallowing. But it felt like he knew me. Not my name, just me. She wrote it down anyway. They told us they'd canvassed the area and left, promising to call if anything came up. I doubted they would. EMS gave me a blanket and I sat in the break room while Travis locked up early. The adrenaline was fading, and I felt it all at once. My hands were shaking, my stomach twisting itself into knots. I hadn't eaten since a half-melted Frosty hours ago, but I didn't feel hunger. Just the echo of that man's voice in my head. You remind me of her. She's hiding again. Travis poked his head in. You okay? I missed my train, I said softly. It was 12:28 a.m. Now, I was supposed to be halfway to Dayton by Rachel, he said, voice low. You don't have to come in tomorrow. Take a day. Hell, take 2. I nodded, but I already knew I'd come back. I always do. I took a lift home and didn't speak the whole ride. My apartment was dark, cold. I didn't turn on the lights. I just curled up under the blanket on my couch and stared at the ceiling. He didn't do anything to me. He didn't touch me. Didn't even yell. But it felt like he got inside something. Some part of me I didn't even know was exposed. And now he was in there, uninvited, whispering. 2 days passed. I didn't talk about it. Not to coworkers, not to my brother, not even to myself. I told everyone I was fine, and for the most part, I went through the motions like I always did. Then on Tuesday morning, I checked my email. Among the coupons and spam was one anonymous message. No subject, no sender. Just a line of text. I found the syrup. I stared at it for a long time. My first thought was that someone from the police had leaked something, or maybe Travis told someone at corporate, and now it was some cruel joke. But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt deliberate, personal. I clicked on the email to see if there was a signature. Nothing. Just a blank screen after that one sentence. Not even a timestamp. I didn't respond. I didn't delete it either. That night I dreamt I was working alone. The restaurant was full of people, but no one had faces. Just shadows, sitting at tables, waiting for food that never came. The soda machine sputtered out syrup instead of soda. It pooled across the floor. The speakers whispered names I couldn't understand. And in the dream, he was there, sitting in the same booth, smiling. I told you she was hiding, he said. But she comes back eventually. They always do. I woke up drenched in sweat. My phone said 2:39 a.m. Outside, it was snowing again. Quiet. Gentle. I didn't sleep after that. I didn't tell anyone about the email. I thought about forwarding it to Travis or even the police. But what would I say? The guy who asked for pancakes sent me a cryptic message about syrup. They'd file it under crazy late-night customer behavior and move on. Still, something about it kept circling in my head. I stopped sleeping properly. I'd close my eyes and feel the fluorescent hum of the Wendy's lights, the stickiness of soda on tile, that off-key humming like a broken music box turning too slow. Every time I passed the corner booth, I'd picture him sitting there. The next few shifts were quieter. People were tense, but no one said much about what happened. It's weird how fast places like this return to normal like nothing ever occurred. New fryer oil, freshly scrubbed counters, Christmas music back on rotation like the whole thing had been wiped away with bleach and glass cleaner. But I felt different. Not just shaken, split. I started checking the security cams every hour, even when I didn't have to. I caught myself flinching when someone came in alone. And every time someone asked for something off menu, I'd brace myself. My brain kept inventing worst-case scenarios like it was trying to train me for the next time. Because some part of me knew this wasn't over. And then came Friday night. We were closing up, me, Travis, and a new hire named Talia. The usual cleaning playlist was playing just enough to drown out the hum of the fryers. I was taking out the trash when I saw it, taped to the back door, an old faded IHOP receipt. Just one item circled in red ink. Pancakes with syrup below it, scrawled in uneven handwriting. I told you. I didn't scream. I just stood there, bag of trash in hand, staring at it like it might rewrite itself. I peeled it off the door and walked back inside, locking the door behind me like that would help. I showed Travis. He looked pale but didn't say much. Probably some kid messing around, he said. But I knew better. The guy had never been drunk. He wasn't confused. He was searching for someone. And I looked enough like whoever she was to spark something in him. I had reminded him of a person he had unfinished business with, real or imagined. The cops never found him. I stopped asking. The email disappeared from my inbox a week later. Vanished. No trace in the trash folder. No record in sent or received logs. I don't know what happened to him. But sometimes, like when I'm walking through the parking lot after close or catching my reflection in the glass at night, I think about his eyes. The way he didn't see me. Just some echo of someone else. Like I'd become a mirror for his worst memory. And you know what scares me most? One day I might do the same to someone else. Sometimes the scariest people aren't the ones who shout or threaten. They're the ones quietly drowning in memory, looking for ghosts in strangers' faces. And when they find a resemblance, even a faint one, they don't see you. They see what they lost, what hurt them, what haunts them. You just happen to be standing in the wrong light at the wrong time. The lesson? We carry our pain everywhere, into restaurants, night shifts, empty booths. But we're not always aware of how it leaks into the lives of others. And sometimes, if we're not careful, we become someone else's ghost. I never planned on driving to Slidell. I was supposed to be home in Baton Rouge, far from dusty rooms, furniture stacked to the ceiling, the odor of forgotten decades lingering in every corner. But when my uncle died alone in that hoarder's house, the family looked the other way. Only I could bring myself to walk through it. I'm Chris Walters, 35, and that Tuesday night in Wendy's changed how I understand memory, guilt, and presence. I spent nearly 12 hours in that house before I decided I'd had enough. The smell of old food, stale air, and sorrow had beaten me down. My head pounded with every step, and I tapped the rearview mirror one last time before I left. Phone was dead, messages from my ex unopened. I needed something simple, normal, so I pulled into a Wendy's near Gauze Boulevard, ordered a spicy chicken sandwich and sweet tea, and sat down in a booth with my back to the only other person in the dining room. He wasn't eating or drinking, just sitting quietly. Pale face, thinning black hair, a black coat that seemed ridiculous in Louisiana heat, and an untouched cup of water. I tried to pretend I couldn't feel him watching. My uncle had spent his last days in room 217 of that hospital, not far from this town. I'd brought him food a couple of times. I'd tried to ask about his decline, but I'd felt he no longer wanted me around. Not much was said when I left. Then the man spoke. "You work at the hospital?" he asked. I turned. "No, just visiting." "Thought I saw you there. Room 217. My throat tightened. That was his room before they discharged him. I felt like I'd swallowed cement. Still, I tried to stay calm. "I've never seen you," I said. The man smiled. "I saw you. You brought him sandwiches. You didn't stay long." I didn't respond. My stomach churned. I stood, tray shaking. "I'm going to move." "He used to cry when you left," he said softly. My breath stalled. "He said he wished he'd raised you like a son," the man continued. Looked at him like he was already dead. "But he didn't. He said I recoiled." Tray in my hand slid backward. My heart was pounding so loudly, I thought the teenager mopping behind me would hear. Who are you?" I managed. The man just smiled again, a sad expression that felt like something out of a dream. I stood and turned away quickly. The kid behind the counter looked at me, confusion written across his face. "Do you know that guy?" I whispered. He shook his head. "What guy?" I looked back. Empty booth, no coat, no water cup, just the beige seat. I walked over, eyes jittering, and froze when I saw the cold glass of water, still there. No one around, no sound of someone leaving. On the table lay a folded piece of paper. I opened it on instinct. "Room 217 still remembers you." My head rang. My chest felt like it had been punched. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think. I shoved the paper into my pocket, paid, and walked out into the slushy night air. My uncle's house felt like a corpse I hadn't buried yet, and now there was that booth, that man, his words. They weren't threats, just memory, judgment, maybe regret, a name, and a truth I couldn't avoid. I'd visited, but maybe I hadn't stayed when it counted. My phone was still dead. I drove home in silence, blinking through tears I didn't recognize until the hospital lights around me blurred. I didn't sleep, not a wink. My head was filled with room 217, with the man, with the static voice whispering from a booth I'd thought was empty. The next morning I walked into the hospital and asked about room 217. There was only one, visitor on record, Chris Walters. Me. No other names. I'd asked about other times, other visits. Nothing. Just me. I didn't tell the clerk why I cared so much. I left before noon and didn't return to Slidell. The hoarder's house stayed locked. I drove home and spent the night drinking weak beer and staring at the ceiling, clutching that paper in my palm. Days passed, and I couldn't erase his words. In the quiet of my apartment, his voice echoed. "He used to cry when you left. You looked at him like he was already dead." I felt guilt I couldn't face. Shame, grief, missed chances. I kept the folded paper under my pillow. At work, I woke early and lingered at the coffee maker, checking hospital logs, thinking about absence. I avoided Wendy's drive-thrus like the plague. The smell of the place haunted me. One evening, I found myself looking at a framed photo of my uncle, younger, smiling. I realized I hadn't grieved properly, not fully. I'd been too busy criticizing what he'd become and ignoring what he once was. That man in the booth. It wasn't haunting. It was chance. Maybe a memory lingering in a face I recognized. Maybe something deeper that my uncle had left behind. I never told my family about that booth, that water cup, that note. They'd have told me to get help. Instead, I folded the note again and wrote inside on blank space. "Uncle, I'm glad you stayed." I left the paper inside the photo frame. On my next trip south, I drove past Slidell. The Wendy's was still there, neon glowing in the twilight. I could have turned in. I didn't. I glanced, and something in me stayed back in that booth. I still don't understand what really happened. If that man was real, or memory, or grief made flesh. But I learned something. Absence isn't empty. It carries weight. It remembers. The note said, Room 217 still remembers you. He wasn't haunting me, he was reminding me. People often carry unspoken regrets and unattended grief into rooms we enter late or seats we leave early. What is forgotten is not always gone. Sometimes silence speaks, presence lingers. And if someone, even an unknown stranger in a booth, reminds you that someone you loved remembered you when it counted, maybe that's a call to stay a little longer, to forgive, to be present. We may not believe ghosts exist, but memory is real, and absence can speak louder than words. Long before this happened, I used to think I was a pretty rational person. The kind who double-checks facts, doesn't fall for ghost stories or internet hoaxes, and believes that everything has a logical explanation if you dig deep enough. I still think that sometimes. But what happened to me last winter made me question where the line is between what we see and what we feel. It started 3 months after I moved to Columbus, Ohio. I was 23, fresh out of design school, with a new job at a boutique firm that mostly handled web layouts for local businesses. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills, and I finally had my own place. A tiny studio apartment off Neal Avenue. It had creaky floors, noisy pipes, and the worst view of a parking lot, but it was mine. Most of my nights were quiet. I'd microwave something, answer a few emails, and fall asleep with Netflix in the background. But that Saturday, I stayed late at the office revising a client's restaurant menu mock-up. Around 9 p.m., I realized I hadn't eaten anything since lunch, and the vending machine coffee had turned my stomach sour. I didn't feel like going home just yet, so I stopped at a Wendy's on High Street near the Ohio State campus. It wasn't busy. One of those places where the lights are a little too bright and the air smells like fry oil and cleaning spray. There were maybe 3 other people inside. I ordered a baked potato and small chili. No drink. Just wanted to sit down and clear my head. I picked a booth near the window. The streets outside were wet from snowmelt, reflecting the red and white neon signs. I liked watching traffic. It made me feel less alone. I had just started pulling the foil off my potato when I noticed her. An older woman, maybe late 40s or early 50s, sat by the soda machine, staring at the drink options like she couldn't decide. She wore an oversized gray hoodie torn at the sleeves and clutched a cracked Samsung phone in one hand. Her other hand trembled slightly as she ran a thumb over the screen. After a minute, she stood up and walked toward me. "Sorry to bother you," she said, voice soft, almost apologetic. "My phone's messed up. I asked the manager, but he said he can't lend me his. I just need to make a quick call to my daughter. Could I borrow yours for a second?" Her eyes were glassy but alert. She looked tired, cold. I hesitated. Something felt off. But then again, I'd be scared too if I were stuck in a fast food joint with no way to reach family. "I can dial it for you," I said, holding my phone out. "Put it on speaker if that's okay." She nodded quickly and recited the number. I dialed. It rang once, then twice. "Hi," a young voice answered, barely above a whisper. The woman's face lit up. "Hey baby, it's Mom. I'm at Wendy's. I didn't know where to go." He took the car again. "I just needed to hear your voice." The girl on the line didn't answer, just silence. Then the woman looked at me. Really looked. Maybe she can keep me company too. "She looks a little like you. Same quiet, kind eyes." I blinked. "Sorry?" She smiled wider, almost dreamily. "Yourself. You live alone, don't you?" "You remind me of her. So tired. Like you carry everything." I stiffened. I hadn't said anything about that. I didn't respond. I took my phone back. "I think I should go." She didn't stop me, just watched me stand and gather my things. "He's going to follow you, you know," she said. "He always does when I find someone new." I threw away my food, barely touched. My hands were shaking. I looked back once through the window, but the booth was empty. She was gone. Just like that. I didn't sleep that night. When I got home, I checked the locks twice, Turned every light on, even ran a hot bath to calm myself down. But that woman's voice stuck with me. The way she'd stared. That line. "You live alone, don't you?" How did she know? I tried to write it off as coincidence. Maybe I looked single. Maybe she was just fishing for sympathy. Still, when I finally crawled into bed around 2:30 a.m., I tucked my phone under my pillow, just in case. Sunday was quiet, cold and gray. I didn't leave the apartment. I tried to distract myself with laundry and YouTube, but around mid-afternoon I remembered something. The call. I wanted to make sure she hadn't somehow saved her daughter's number or accessed my contacts. I opened my recent calls. Nothing. My last outgoing call was to my coworker Mia, 2 days earlier. There was no call at 9:35 p.m., not even a missed one. I stared at the screen, suddenly cold all over again. I know I dialed that number. I remember it ringing. I remember the girl answering. But the phone said it never happened. That's when the paranoia really began. Monday at work, I couldn't concentrate. Every shadow in the office felt too still. I caught myself checking the front windows 3 times. Mia noticed. "You okay?" she asked, nudging my shoulder. "You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a smile. Didn't sleep well. I didn't tell her about the woman. It sounded stupid even to me. That night, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment around midnight. Slow, deliberate ones. When I looked through the peephole, there was no one there. Just an empty stretch of carpet and dim overhead lights. The next 3 nights were more of the same. Random noises, flickers in the corner of my vision. That feeling like you're being watched. Not in a paranoid way, but in the animal instinct kind of way. A tightening in your gut that you can't explain. I started leaving the bathroom light on at night. I even moved my dresser in front of the front door just in case. It wasn't much, but it gave me a small illusion of control. On Thursday, my boss pulled me aside. "You've been off this week," he said gently. "Your energy's weird. You okay?" "You're doing good work, don't get me wrong," but I nodded too quickly. Just adjusting to the cold. He smiled. "Well, hang in there. We like having you." That night, I dreamed of her. Not the woman, but her voice, over and over. "He always follows me. He always follows." When I woke up, the hallway light outside my door was out. By Friday, I'd stopped pretending everything was fine. I hadn't slept more than 3 hours a night all week. I was jumpy, irritable, and barely eating. When Mia asked if I wanted to grab lunch, I lied and said I had a dentist appointment. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was the kind of gnawing anxiety that sinks into your bones. Like you're waiting for something you can't stop, and you know it's coming, but you don't know when. I started taking Ubers home from work even though it was only a 10-minute walk. I avoided the windows in my apartment. I unplugged the TV and stopped listening to music. The silence helped me focus, helped me hear if anything moved. Saturday night marked 1 week since Wendy's. I told myself I had to break the spell, get out of the house, prove to myself it was just some weird moment that got under my skin. So I did something kind of stupid. I drove back to the same Wendy's, same parking lot, same flickering sign above the door, same old soda machine humming by the counter. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something was off. Not wrong, not dangerous, just shifted. The lighting was dimmer than I remembered. The air was heavier, like the HVAC wasn't working right. The only people inside were 2 tired-looking students at the back booth and an older man mopping the floor. I ordered the same thing, baked potato, small chili, no drink. The cashier handed me a tray and muttered something I didn't catch. I sat in the same booth, near the window, facing the soda machine, and I waited. Maybe I thought she'd show up again. Maybe I was hoping she wouldn't. But part of me, the part that had been clenched in fear all week, needed to see her again, needed to understand what had happened. She didn't come. But something else did. Halfway through my chili, I got the feeling I wasn't alone. Not in the physical sense, There were still people inside, but it felt like someone was sitting across from me, just out of sight. Like if I moved my head too fast, I'd catch them watching. I looked at my phone, trying to shake it. That's when I noticed something new. A number. In my notes app. It was just sitting there. A 10-digit phone number and a note titled, "She said call back." I didn't write that. I hadn't opened notes all week. I copied the number, dialed it. It rang once, then silence. No voicemail, no tone, just stillness. Then I heard something. Not through the phone, behind me. A whisper, close. He knows now. I turned around. No one was there. I didn't drive home. I sat in my car for almost an hour, parked outside the Wendy's, watching the front doors like they might open on their own. The number was still in my phone. I deleted it. Then I checked the notes app again. It was back. She said call back. Same number, same title. But now, beneath the number, something new had appeared. "You left the door unlocked." I almost dropped my phone. My stomach turned cold. I opened my smart home app and checked the door log. Nothing had triggered the sensor in 3 hours, but I wasn't convinced. I called a locksmith that night and had the whole deadbolt replaced. Added a second lock too. I told the guy I had a bad roommate experience. He didn't ask questions. Sunday, I called off work for the next few days. I needed space. I needed sleep. But more than anything, I needed to feel like I was in control again. That afternoon, I got a text from an unknown number. No name. Just one sentence. "She's gone." But he's not. I blocked it. I changed my number the next day. I deleted all social media. I unplugged my laptop and started using a burner phone. I know how paranoid that sounds, but something had changed. In me and around me. I never saw the woman again, but I felt her absence like a hole in the air. And I began to wonder if she'd ever really been there to begin with. Maybe she was just the warning. And whatever came after, whatever I'd brushed up against, was the real danger. That week I heard scratching at my window around 3 a.m. I live on the 3rd floor. It's been 7 months now. I moved apartments, switched jobs, changed cities. I don't talk to my old coworkers anymore, and I never eat at fast food chains after dark. Most nights, things are quiet again. I fall asleep to podcasts. I keep a desk lamp on low. I don't check the peephole unless I hear something loud. That's progress, I guess. But some nights, the worst nights, I hear the sound of a cracked phone sliding across a table. I dream of a woman with a crooked smile and tired eyes. And sometimes I still get those calls. They come from numbers with no caller ID, no audio, just breathing. The last one came 2 weeks ago. I was eating dinner on the couch. The phone lit up. No name, no number. When I answered, no one spoke. But I heard a voice in the background, a young girl, faint, almost crying. "Please come home, Mom." Then silence. I sat there for what felt like an hour. I'm telling you this not because I need help. That ship's long sailed. But because you need to know something. When you meet someone out in the world who seems lost, who carries a kind of sadness that doesn't match the setting, be careful. Some people are just broken. But others are looking for someone to take their place. Sometimes, evil doesn't wear a mask or come screaming. Sometimes it's quiet, sad, familiar. Be cautious with what and who you let into your life. Not every cry for help is what it seems, and not every kindness is free. Trust your instincts. Protect your space. Because once something follows you home, it doesn't always leave. Not completely. Some things just don't make sense until way later, if ever. You live a regular day, a normal hour, a routine stop at some fast food place, and then something happens that rewrites how safe you feel in the world. That's what happened to me. My name's Luis Moreno, 19. At the time, I had just started at Bakersfield Community College. Nothing flashy, just general eds and an early morning sociology class. I was working part-time at a local bookstore down on Union Avenue. It was one of those weeks where everything just felt stacked against me. Exams, double shifts, and a fight with my brother that left the air around our apartment heavy and cold. He still treated me like I was 15, like I didn't know how to handle my own life. That Tuesday night, I decided to treat myself after class. There's this Wendy's near Golden State Avenue, about 5 minutes from the college. I went there mostly because it was quiet, well lit, and they had that 4 for $4 deal. I got a Frosty too. Figured I deserved something small after the week I'd had. I sat by the window, half scrolling through my phone and zoning out to whatever playlist Spotify had thrown together. That's when it happened. A man sat directly across from me. No tray, no food, just sat down like we'd arranged to meet. I looked up, confused. He had this scruffy beard, faded jean jacket, tired eyes, like someone who hadn't slept right in days. But those eyes, they were intense, not angry, just searching. "You don't recognize me, do you?" he asked. I blinked. "Sorry, I think you have the wrong person." He smiled, calm and casual. "Always joking. You're good at pretending. I like that." I laughed nervously, unsure what to do. "No, really, I think you've mistaken me for someone else." "You're serious?" he said, more to himself than to me. "Kansas never happened? So what? Are you just gonna act like..." And that stopped me. Cold. Kansas? I'd never been to Kansas in my life. I stood up. "Look, man, I don't know you. I'm leaving." As I turned, his voice followed me, flat and sharp. "You left me behind. You think I don't remember? You had that same look when you walked away." I didn't even grab my tray. I bolted out, practically running to my car. The parking lot felt too big, too open. I kept checking over my shoulder as I unlocked the door. The whole drive home, my mind was running circles. Did I know him from somewhere? Was this some messed up prank? Or was he just mentally ill? I didn't sleep much that night. I kept playing it over. His tone, that look in his eyes, like he genuinely believed we had history. And the worst part of me started wondering if maybe I had forgotten something. Someone. The next day I tried to put it behind me. I didn't tell anyone, not my brother, not my coworker Abby at the bookstore. It just felt too weird to explain without sounding like I was overreacting. Still, I couldn't shake it. At work, I kept glancing toward the front door. Every time it opened, my shoulders tensed. I watched people's jackets. I scanned faces. That denim kept flashing in my mind like a warning light. Later that afternoon, I was shelving some mystery paperbacks near the window when I saw it. Across the street, leaning against a light pole, the same jean jacket, same build. The guy had his back to me, but I felt it, like some inner wire in me had just snapped tight. I ducked behind the shelf, heart pounding. When I peeked again 2 minutes later, he was gone. That night, I stayed up with the lights on. I kept my phone in my hand and turned on the camera app just to watch the hallway outside my bedroom. Nothing happened, but around midnight, someone knocked at the apartment door. 3 soft knocks. No more. I waited. Quiet. Got up slow and looked through the peephole. No one. I opened the door anyway, just to check. The hallway was empty, but the air smelled different, like someone had just been there. Like heat left behind. I told myself I was being paranoid. Coincidences. Stress. I'd been overworked and barely sleeping. But the next day it happened again. Same jacket, this time at the college library. I was in one of those back corners, pretending to study while mostly texting, and when I looked up, there he was, 2 rows over. Just standing, not reading, not browsing, just watching. He didn't move, didn't speak. I left my stuff and walked straight out. I finally told someone. That night I sat on the couch with my brother. We weren't close. Too many fights over small things, but I needed to say it out loud. "There's this guy," I started. "He keeps showing up. Said something weird to me the other night." My brother looked over the rim of his soda. "Weird how?" "Like he knew me. Like Really knew me. He mentioned Kansas. He raised an eyebrow. Kansas? I've never even been there. What's he look like? I described the beard, the jacket, the eyes. When I got to the part about the library, my brother frowned. You sure it's not just a guy who hangs around campus? He sat across from me. Knew my name. Knew things I didn't say. He leaned back, arms crossed. If it happens again, call campus security or the police. It wasn't the reaction I wanted. I didn't want rules or procedures. I wanted someone to tell me it wasn't real, that I imagined it. But I nodded and let it drop. The thing is, he never came close again. Never spoke. Just showed up. On the sidewalk. Across the street. Behind a display case. Like a ghost that knew exactly where I'd be. Then one night, walking home from campus, I heard it. A whisper, right behind my shoulder. I forgive you. I turned fast. Empty sidewalk. Nothing but night air. I don't think I breathed for a full minute. I filed a report the next morning. Campus security wrote everything down, took a description, asked for camera footage, but they couldn't do much. No name, no contact, no crime, technically. He didn't threaten you, one officer said. Happens. Could be mistaken identity. Could be a drifter. Yeah, happens. Except I stopped walking home, started getting rides from coworkers, started skipping class. I changed my phone number. I deleted Instagram and locked down Facebook. I didn't want him finding anything else about me. I didn't want to give him another door to walk through. He never approached again, but I still felt it, like his memory had a long shadow. One that followed me through automatic doors and street corners. The worst moment came 2 weeks later. I was at the bookstore, alone on a closing shift. Around 9:15 p.m., I walked out to the dumpster in the back lot carrying a bag of torn-up shipping boxes. As I stepped out, I saw it, on the asphalt, at the edge of the lot. A denim jacket, folded, neatly, sitting there like an offering. I dropped the trash and went back inside without saying a word. Locked the doors, turned off the lights, sat behind the register shaking until my brother came to pick me up. I never told him about the jacket. I haven't seen him since then, not directly anyway, but I still feel him. Like a story that ends mid-sentence. Like something left unsaid that still waits for a response. Some nights I dream about that Wendy's table, the Frosty melting, his voice. You had that same look when you walked away. I don't know who he was, or what he wanted, or if someone out there really did leave him behind once and he saw me as some kind of echo. But the memory lingers. Now, when I'm out in public, I check reflections. I avoid sitting near windows. I scan for denim jackets the way someone else might scan for exits. The truth is, it doesn't matter if it was real or not. Because what it did was real. It made me question how visible I was. How vulnerable. How easy it is to be pulled into someone else's unfinished story without warning. Not all danger looks like a threat. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it asks a question. And sometimes it just sits quietly, certain you'll remember what it never lets you forget. Always trust your instinct when something feels off. You don't owe strangers your time. You don't owe familiarity to someone just because they say you should. And most of all, don't wait to run when your gut tells you to go. It's strange, the things you remember in perfect detail when the world changes in an instant. For me, it's the sound of the soda machine in that Wendy's on Dale Mabry. The low, rhythmic hum of it, the little hiss when someone filled their cup, the quiet chatter of families a few booths away, that smell of fries and processed cheese and old mop water. It was a normal Saturday night in Tampa, the kind where the air still held a little heat even after sunset, and the sky was this washed-out blue that made everything feel a bit tired. I hadn't planned to go out, but Max had been restless all day, pacing near the door, ears up like he was trying to tell me something. That dog, he always knew when I needed a break. Maybe it was him or maybe it was me, but either way, we ended up in my truck just before 8. Took a drive, windows down. No real destination, just the two of us, like always. We ended up at Wendy's, the one we always went to. Max didn't bark or whine. He just sat upright in the passenger seat, looking out the window like he was the one checking the drive-thru menu. I ordered what I always ordered, Dave's triple with fries for me, a plain grilled chicken patty for him. No seasoning, no sauces, just simple protein for my boy. That had been our routine for years. I must have bought him that same patty 200 times. Maybe more. We went inside because the drive-thru line was long and I didn't feel like sitting in the truck. Max walked beside me like he always did, calm, gentle, leash slack in my hand. People noticed him, like they always did. Little girl in a pink shirt pointed and smiled. An older guy by the soda fountain gave a respectful nod. Max was that kind of dog, the kind that made you feel better just by existing. We took the booth near the corner window, my usual spot. I slid our tray on the table, peeled the paper off the chicken patty and set it on a napkin on the floor beside him. He looked up at me, tail thumping once, and started eating. 5 minutes passed, maybe 6, and then he whimpered. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe something stuck in his throat. Maybe he just wanted a sip of water. I reached down, scratched behind his ear, said, "You good, buddy?" The way I always did. Then he let out another sound, sharper this time. A sound I'd never heard from him. He tried to stand, legs shaking, and collapsed hard against the floor. His body jerked. Foamed spit started bubbling from his mouth. His eyes darted like he didn't know where he was, or who I was. "Max?" I said. "Max." I dropped to the floor and tried to hold him, but his muscles were stiff, then limp, then stiff again. Someone screamed. I think a tray hit the floor behind me. Voices raised, shoes scuffed. Someone called for help. But I didn't hear most of it. I was trying to keep him here, with me, talking to him, begging. I don't remember what I said. Probably nonsense. I just remember the weight of him going slack in my arms. I remember the final breath he let out. I remember the way the air shifted like something huge had just left the room. I stayed on the floor with him. I didn't care that people were watching, or that someone was filming on their phone. Max was gone, and something had killed him. Right there under the goddamn fresh, never frozen sign. I didn't sleep that night. I left Wendy's covered in Max's fur and whatever he'd coughed up during those last awful seconds. The staff had tried to talk to me, a manager named Kayla, I think, but I couldn't process a word she said. I don't even remember how I got home. All I remember is driving with the windows down, one hand on the wheel, the other on his leash. It was still clipped to his collar. I never unhooked it. The house felt empty in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't just quiet. It was hollow, like the walls had changed shape without him. His bowls were still full. His bed was still in the corner. And I just stood there in the living room, leash in my hand, staring at all of it like if I stood still long enough I could reverse time. I didn't cry until I saw the chicken wrapper still folded in my back pocket. I sat on the floor and lost it. The next morning, I posted the story. Not because I wanted attention, hell, I barely use Facebook, but because something about the way Max died felt wrong, sudden, violent. It wasn't a seizure. I've seen dogs seize. This was something else. Poison, toxin, something in that patty killed him, and I needed people to know. I didn't expect the post to spread the way it did, thousands of shares by the next afternoon. Local news outlets started calling. Animal groups reached out. Some woman in St. Petersburg messaged me that her golden retriever got sick a week earlier. Same thing, plain chicken patty from a different Wendy's. Then another family in Sarasota. Then one up in Ocala. Same symptoms, same food. The pattern was starting to form, but the company didn't say a damn thing. Just a canned apology someone from PR must have copied and pasted into every email. We are investigating this matter internally and take food safety seriously. They always say that. But it doesn't bring back the dog who slept beside you every night for 7 years. It doesn't erase the sound of him choking in a place you thought was safe. I wanted answers. So I started digging. First, I took what was left of the chicken patty. I'd scooped it into a Ziploc with shaking hands that night and brought it to a local vet I knew from the VA support group. She ran tests, said she'd never seen anything like the reaction Max had. The speed, the violence. Then the lab called. Traces of xylitol, harmless to humans, lethal to dogs. And that's when it all clicked. The moment I heard the word, I froze. Xylitol. I knew about it. Everyone with a dog should. It's in sugar-free gum, protein bars, sometimes even peanut butter. Ingesting even a tiny amount can kill a dog within minutes. And now it had shown up in the grilled chicken from Wendy's. Something I'd trusted to be clean, plain, and safe. I called the vet back. She confirmed it. It's not naturally in chicken, she said. Not deliberately maybe, but it got in there somehow. Someone added I sat on my back porch that night with Max's leash draped across my lap, staring at the oak tree he used to chase squirrels around. My hands trembled in this slow, hollow way, not like fear, like betrayal. That's what this was. Betrayal. By the system, by the chain I gave my money to, by every regulation that's supposed to keep food safe, not just for people, but for the animals we bring with us, our companions, our family. I reached out to the other pet owners who'd messaged me. We started comparing notes. Same story. Chicken patties. Dogs getting violently ill. A few survived, barely. Others didn't. One woman had even filed a complaint with corporate 2 weeks prior. Never got a follow-up. That's when I stopped hoping Wendy's would step up on their own. I started reaching out to reporters. One of them, a guy named Dale from Channel 10, actually listened. Came to my place, asked real questions. I showed him the lab results. The map I'd started pinning with red dots where dogs had gotten sick. He nodded slowly and said, "You've got something here, Tyler. They'll have to respond now." And sure enough, 3 days later, the health department showed up at the Wendy's on Dale Mabry, shut it down for inspection, full scrub of the kitchen, statements collected, employees questioned. That same day, a low-level employee leaked something to a friend of one of the other dog owners. A photo, a shipping label, a batch of powdered sweetener, meant for a sugar-free dessert plant, had been delivered to a Wendy's distribution warehouse 2 weeks before Max died. No one knows how it ended up in the seasoning mix for grilled chicken. No one trained the line cooks to check the ingredient codes. They just dumped what they were given. It wasn't malice, it was negligence. And that kind of negligence kills. I sat in my truck outside the Wendy's that night, watching through the glass as a man in gloves power washed the tile where Max had died. The fluorescent lights made everything look cleaner than it was. Sanitized. Fake. I didn't get out. I just sat there and whispered, "I'm sorry, bud." I owed him more than that, but it was all I had. You'd think once the truth is out, once the lab tests confirm the poison, once the health department steps in, things would start to feel better. Like justice is on the way. That's what I thought too. But it didn't happen like that. A week after the Wendy's shut down for cleaning, it reopened like nothing had happened. New posters on the windows, fresh uniforms on the staff, a little "We're committed to safety" sign posted near the register in that polite corporate font. Not a word about Max or the other dogs. Corporate issued a public statement, buried under marketing spin, claiming the contamination came from a mislabeled vendor shipment and that appropriate steps have been taken. No apology, no names, no recall notice, not even a warning to customers with pets. It was like they were hoping people would just move on, and most did. People have short memories. There was another story in the news about a gas explosion that took the spotlight that week. The Wendy's drive-thru filled up again. People sat in the same booths, laughed, dipped fries in Frosties, just like before. But I couldn't move on. Max had died in my arms, and no one had been held accountable. I started getting quiet, withdrawn. Friends stopped checking in as often. Even my VA group didn't really know what to say. Most of them had lost someone overseas. I guess to them, a dog didn't quite register the same. But they didn't know Max. They didn't know he was the reason I ever left the house in the first place. The reason I started talking again, sleeping again, living again. He wasn't just a dog. He was my tether to the world. I tried talking to a lawyer, but they told me what I already feared. Pets are considered property under the law. No pain and suffering damages, no real recourse. Maybe a settlement if I wanted to push, but it wouldn't be public. Wouldn't change anything. That night I took a drive. Ended up back at Wendy's, parked in the same space. Stared at that glowing red sign like it had something to say for itself. I didn't go inside, just sat there. Until someone walked out with a bag in their hand and a small white dog trailing behind them on a pink leash. That was the moment it really hit me. People were still feeding their dogs here. Because they didn't know. Because the company had made sure they wouldn't. I stopped fighting after that. Not because I gave up. Not really. I just realized the war I wanted to win wasn't one I could. No one was going to shut the place down for good. No executive was going to look me in the eye and say, "You were right. We failed." There weren't going to be memorials for dogs like Max. But there were still stories. So I started telling mine. I did interviews, local papers, podcasts, one small segment on the evening news. I talked about xylitol, about how easy it is for a simple supply error to kill someone's best friend, about how we treat our animals like family, but our laws don't. It didn't bring Max back, but it meant something. I even put together a little website, just a plain page with Max's photo, the story, and a warning in bold, confirmed safe. Grilled chicken may contain xylitol. Do not feed fast food to pets unless ingredients are a few hundred people shared it. Then a few thousand. It wasn't viral, but it was something, and sometimes that's all you get. 1 month after he died, I went back to that Wendy's for the last time. I didn't eat, didn't even bring my wallet inside. I just sat at our booth, the one by the corner window, and stared at the tile where he'd collapsed. They'd replaced it, or scrubbed it so clean it didn't look the same. Either way, it didn't matter. I sat there a while. People came and went. A kid spilled his soda. A couple argued quietly in the booth beside me. The world kept moving. Eventually, I stood up. I left a picture of Max on the table, and I walked out. I haven't been back since, but I do still carry his leash in my glove box. It's frayed now, sun-bleached and worn, but I keep it close. A reminder, not just of him, but of the promise I made the night he died, that I wouldn't let the silence win. We trust companies with more than our money. We trust them with our time, our habits, sometimes even our families, human and otherwise. But that trust is fragile, and when it's broken, the consequences aren't always measured in dollars or headlines. They're measured in grief, in what's lost. The lesson here isn't just about xylitol or Wendy's. It's about awareness, about reading labels, about asking questions even when they feel inconvenient. Because responsibility isn't just theirs, it's ours too. Care for the ones who can't speak for themselves. They're counting on us. Sometimes you know the worst is going to happen, but there's nothing you can do to stop it until it's too late. My name's Elena Ramirez. I was 24, working the late shift at the Wendy's on East Tropicana in Las Vegas. I'd been there 7 months, earning just enough to avoid eviction and keep my sister in college. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't safe, but it was work. That Tuesday, March 19, 2024, was supposed to be routine. Closing shift, just me, Derek, the part-time manager, and Lena working drive-thru. We were wiping tables, counting registers, sweeping fries under the counters. Outside, the strip mall was already dark except for the smoke shop's neon and the theater's boarded windows. At exactly 11:10 p.m., the last customer left. Derek dimmed the lights in the dining area and shuffled out back to take a smoke break. Lena was tallying the register. I was at the sink, scrubbing greasy plates, trying to ignore the buzz in my temples from being awake too long. Then came the knock. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow, deliberate taps at the front door. I looked up. A man stood outside. Pale head, filthy brown hoodie, hands behind his back, eyes wide and unblinking. He didn't lean in or shout. He just stood and stared. I cleared my throat. "Sir, we're closed." Nothing. Lena, across the counter, muttered, "Creep alert." Derek returned, exhaling vape smoke. "What's up?" "There's a guy outside," Lena said. Derek approached the window. "Hey man, we're closed. Come back tomorrow." Not a glimmer of recognition from the guy. He just tilted his head and kept watching. Then he smiled. Slowly. The wrong kind of smile. That's when I noticed the eyes. Not blank, but focused. Like he was studying each of us, memorizing. He reached into his hoodie. Derek cursed. "Back up, lock the door." It was too late. Boom. He kicked the glass. Cracked. Boom. Again. The door wobbled. Panic seized us. Lena screamed and ran toward the back. Derek shoved me toward the prep area, but I grabbed my phone to call 911. The screen froze. No signal. Then smoke curled into the room. Not from the HVAC. From outside. A dumpster fire heating the vents, pushing smoke in. That was his plan. Smoke would trigger the fire doors to unlock automatically. He slipped through, mask on, machete in hand. We had no time. The world slowed down while it sped up. Derek charged, but his arm got slashed. Lena bolted toward the back sink area, trapped. I ducked behind the drink station, deluge of adrenaline in my veins. He moved like a ghost, quiet but purposeful. I scrambled for a fire extinguisher, disoriented by flashing smoke and screaming alarms. He crossed the counter toward Lena, blade raised. My hands shook violently as I aimed the extinguisher. Foam hissed out, spraying straight into his eyes. He screamed, swatted it away, swinging wildly. Derek, bleeding and desperate, lunged at him again, clashing bodies near the registers. I seized the moment, grabbing Lena's hand and pulling her toward the walk-in freezer. We slammed it shut from inside. I whispered, "We're calling cops. Stay quiet." Inside the freezer, ears ringing, heart pounding, we heard a crash. Derek's voice echoed, then silence. No footsteps, no screams, just alarms outside. We sat on the cold metal shelf, clutching each other's hands, waiting. Time stretched. I didn't know if he'd gone, if Derek was alive. Finally, after who knows how long, sirens. It took 14 minutes, felt like 14 hours. Police charged in. Firefighters put out the dumpster blaze. Cameras around the store were useless. They'd been disabled by the smoke systems and heat. Forensics combed broken glass and the freezer door latch. But the man was gone. Derek made it, barely. He needed 26 stitches and had nerve damage in his shoulder. Lena and I sat together, shaken, silent. On the counter, they found a note, charred around the edges. "You're never really alone. Just unprepared." We stared at each other. He'd planned it. Knock the door, light the fire, wait for the alarm system to do his job. We weren't victims of a robbery. We were victims of design. Later, campus security, local reporters. They asked questions. We recounted details. But none of it changed the fact he vanished like smoke. No explanation, no motive, nothing but a warning. I quit 3 days later. I couldn't work nights again. I couldn't sleep without checking every door. I still jump when I hear glass tapping. Some nights I swear I see a figure across the street. Brown hoodie, machete never drawn, just watching. I didn't sleep for the first 2 nights. I couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. That stare, the slow smile, the way he moved through the smoke like he was born in it. I could still feel the cold steel of the freezer handle in my hand and the dead silence that followed the crash outside. I thought time would help, that I'd go back to normal. But I didn't. I couldn't. I tried returning one afternoon to drop off my badge and uniform. The front windows had been replaced, but you could still see where the glass spiderwebbed from the inside. I didn't even make it through the doors. I sat in my car for a few minutes, saw Derek inside, arm in a sling, expression tired, and then I drove off. He waved when he saw me. I didn't wave back. I started noticing things after that. At first I told myself it was paranoia, but patterns formed. Same silver sedan parked across from my apartment 3 nights in a row. A bald guy at the edge of a bus stop who turned his head just a second too late when I looked. Footsteps behind me on my walk home that stopped the moment I paused. Nothing solid, just shadows brushing too close. Lena called me once. She sounded different, quiet, smaller somehow. "You okay?" I asked. She hesitated. "He was watching us before that night." "What?" She sighed. "I remember now. He came through the drive-thru once a week before it all happened. I thought he was just a weirdo. He asked for no food, just a napkin. Then he looked at me and said, 'You'll know me better soon.'" I didn't know what to say. My throat closed up. Maybe it wasn't random. Maybe he picked us. Maybe we were a rehearsal. I kept my curtains shut. I didn't eat. I didn't leave the apartment after dark. The cops stopped calling. There were no leads, no new attacks. It was like he evaporated, just a phantom that left one footprint and vanished in smoke. But I knew he was still out there. People like that don't just disappear. They wait. About a month later, I took a night shift at a diner in Henderson, quiet, family-run, nothing like that Wendy's. I needed the work even if my hands still trembled when the sun went down. That's where I saw him again. He didn't come in. He just stood across the street beneath the broken street lamp. Same hoodie, same posture, hands in his pockets, watching. I blinked, heart racing. When I looked again, he was gone. That night I didn't sleep. I moved a dresser against the door, slept on the couch with the TV on low. Nothing happened, but the feeling never left me. Weeks passed. I started therapy. I quit the night shifts, moved in with a friend. The bad dreams faded, but I never relaxed fully. I checked every lock twice. I carried pepper spray and kept a hammer in my car. The thing I can't shake is that note he left. "You're never really alone, just unprepared." It was true. We weren't prepared. None of us. Not for a man like that. Not for evil that doesn't want money or revenge, just chaos, just fear. I don't know who he was or why he picked us. Maybe he was a former customer. Maybe he'd been planning it for months. Maybe it wasn't personal. But it became personal the moment he looked through that glass and smiled. Derek moved back to Arizona. Lena started working at a hospital, day shifts only. I haven't seen either of them in person since. Me, I still look over my shoulder. I still leave lights on when I sleep. But I'm not frozen anymore. I've made peace with one thing. Evil doesn't always knock on the door. Sometimes it taps gently. Sometimes it just smiles. And sometimes it walks in while you're counting down a register, thinking about nothing, completely unaware your life is about to change forever. The world doesn't always give you a warning. Danger doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it wears a human face and knows exactly where to strike when you're tired, distracted, and most vulnerable. The lesson I learned, and the one I'll never forget, is simple. Be alert. Be prepared. Trust your instincts, even when nothing makes sense. Especially then. Because when things go quiet and something feels wrong, it probably is. I never signed up for scary nights. I was just trying to keep rent paid. I'm Jordan Blake, 22, working double shifts at Wendy's, saving up for a life away from my mom's house and her boyfriend's loud complaints. It was February 4th, a Sunday, around 10:39 p.m. The floor was half empty, the staff nearly gone. Carmen, our manager, usually left at 10. Soft jazz played from a phone behind the counter while I cleaned tables and finished the front register closing. I was exhausted. My bones ached. I just wanted to finish the shift and go home. That's when two men walked in. One younger guy in his 30s, neat collared shirt, polite. The other older man, reddish skin, unsteady steps, breath thick with alcohol. The younger man smiled. 2 bacon doubles, ma'am. Water is fine. I rang them up. Greeting polite, routine. They sat in the far corner. I went to clear another table and noticed the older man looking at me. Not just glancing, staring. Eyes locked. I looked away, heart rate rising. I dropped off their tray, then moved back to the register. The older man, Ted, leaned over. "You got a boyfriend, huh?" He slurred. I didn't answer. Tried to stay professional. Then louder, "You look real pretty in that uniform." Bet his nephew hissed, "Hey, chill." Ted stumbled to his feet. "We came in for service, not attitude." My jaw clenched. I said firmly, "Sir, we're about to close. Please finish your food." Then he grabbed my wrist, hard and unsteady. I froze before pulling away. His grip was sweaty, rough. Kenny stormed out of the kitchen. "Let her go." Ted leaned closer. "I just want to talk." I backed up to the soda station. "Please leave. Now." He threw ice onto the floor and smirked. "You think you're better than me?" He said he'd built bigger houses than this place. I just stood there shaking, adrenaline flooding. I called Carmen on the line, shaky but urgent. She said police were on the way. Ted pulled a switchblade from his boot. The nephew panicked. Rope tension built as the older man advanced. Kenny grabbed a metal tray and stood between us and Ted. "Back off." The older man laughed. "I've done worse fights than this since '82. I felt so small. Then the nephew grabbed the fire extinguisher corner side and blasted foam into Ted's face. Ted screeched, dropped the knife, coughing. Kenny grabbed him, tackled him to the floor. I bolted to the storage room, locked it behind me, and called 911. My phone's voice cracked, words jumbled. Through the door's gap I listened, scrambling feet, low curses, clanking utensils. I wrapped myself around the phone, waiting for sirens. 6 minutes later, police burst in. It felt like eternity. They handcuffed Ted and helped him sit on the floor. Paramedics arrived. His nephew, eyes wide, was taken aside by officers for questioning. Turns out Ted was on parole for assault. The nephew explained he was trying to take him for food after a relapse. Guilt and regret burned off his face. My hands were still shaking hours later. I ended up in the break room alone, refusing to finish my shift. I cried in the car for nearly 30 minutes before I could drive home. No one called me the next day. No one checked in to ask if I was okay. Corporate's one-liner came a week later. "We're committed to safety and thank our employees for their quick thinking. No raise, no mandatory training, no counseling offered." I stayed, but I refused to cover closing shifts again. Even a man walking in alone after 10 p.m. now triggered alarm bells, hands balling into fists, breath shallow, panic not far below. Weeks passed and every new night shift felt more draining. They paired me with day team during closing hours because I refused to do nights anymore. Kenny still stood by me at work, but Carmen hardly spoke. No one questioned what might have happened to me. I felt adrift. Every time I signed forms, I saw Ted's resolute stare in my mind. I imagined him leaning over and grabbing me again. I replayed the ice, the foam, the fear. I realized I hadn't just been serving burgers. I'd been serving customers until someone took his battle home with him and brought it here, where lines blurred, warnings ignored. I began therapy, just to unpack the weight. I moved shifts to earlier in the evening. I stopped working weekends. I couldn't face strangers at closing hours with empty stomachs and uncertain steps. And I quit texting my mom. I had made it home at midnight. She didn't need to worry. One night, walking home at 7 p.m., I saw 2 men behind their motel across the street. One in a collared shirt, one steadying the drunk man, like echo images of that night. I froze under neon motel lights. They didn't see me. They didn't need to. It's been 6 months. I still see shadows after 10 p.m. I still wake up with my jaw pinched tight, but I haven't worked late nights since. I moved into a place with a daytime-only landlord, got a job at a tech retail store, weekends and evenings only. It feels safer. I still think about Ted, about how a drunk man with a knife transformed a slow night into the worst hours of my life. Kenny stayed a friend. Lena moved into hospital phlebotomy training, daytime only. Carmen left town. Derek closed at Wendy's later that year after a health inspection turned it around. Sometimes, though, I drive by late at night, lights off, silent, and I picture us behind those counters. I picture him blur in glass and Lee bleach. Working late doesn't mean being alone, not if your gut tells you something's off. Fear isn't weakness. It's a whisper your mind sends when danger is near. If your gut says run, even gently, trust it. Boundaries matter. You don't owe strangers respect beyond hospitality, especially not in hours when the world feels vulnerable. Respect your instincts. And if kindness or professional etiquette feels forced around someone who rattles your bones, step back. Protect yourself. That night reminded me that safety isn't just about procedures. It's about recognizing the danger in someone's eyes before they brandish the knife. I used to think nights were simple, quiet, just another shift, just another register beep. At 21, I was working the front at the Wendy's on Hillsborough Avenue, filling in for a friend who'd called out sick. I didn't want to. Gas stations, motels, and pawn shops surrounded us, and late-night prowlers were part of the paycheck. But rent and bills don't care what you're comfortable with. Beside me, Natalie on drive-thru headset had her Sprite iced halfway down already. In the kitchen, Luis was packing fries and sauces, prepping for close. I'd only worked 2 late shifts there, but I'd learned to watch details. Every car, every look, the way voices shifted when no one else noticed. That Thursday, April 25th, 2024, I clocked in at 6 p.m. I folded paper wrappings, stacked menus, yelled out customer names, and told myself it was safe, that nothing bad would happen. That help would arrive before you needed it, if it ever did. At 8:05 p.m., a black Chevy Suburban rolled up to the drive-thru. Big and dark, headlights low. The man ordered 2 Dave's doubles, one with no onions. Natalie paused, unblinking. "That's a red flag," she whispered. I smiled. Maybe he's just allergic. We both laughed quietly. That car pulled around into the second window. I walked over, bag in hand, and gave it to the man, mid-50s, wearing sunglasses at night, sweating like he wasn't supposed to be seen. He forced a smile. "Thanks, sweetie, appreciate it." Then I noticed a pair of eyes in the back seat. A girl, about 11 or 12. Hoodie pulled tight. Pale face. She didn't speak. But she raised her hand and flashed a signal none of us knew until later. 4 fingers up, thumb tucked, domestic violence help code. I froze. The car backed up slowly. Neon sign reflected off their rear window. I summoned calm, called, wondering if he'd hear. "You forgot your fries," the man growled, reversed, annoyed. "Wait, I didn't order fries." I kept the tone soft, professional. "I'm so sorry we gave you the wrong bag. One moment just to check." Behind me, Natalie's face went pale. My voice lowered to a whisper. "Call 911, quietly. A girl's giving a distress signal in the back." She swallowed and clicked headset off. Luis nodded at my cue and moved through the kitchen to lock front and side doors. I stepped back to the window as the car edged forward. The man leaned out to look at the fries. I snapped a picture of the license plate. Every second held a lifetime. 2 blocks down, officers had started mobilizing. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, fear had an odor. Metallic, urgent. I pulled Natalie aside behind the counter and gave her the photo. She typed the number into her phone, face shaking. The man turned the Suburban the wrong way and backed slowly toward Motel 6 just a few blocks away, the very building I had walked past during lunch break. I grabbed my phone and texted 911 dispatch. Girl signaled help code at drive-thru. Car Suburban black, plate, moving toward Motel 6. I choked on my voice. They confirmed they were tracking it. During that moment, I felt a heavy conflict. Should we ask more questions? But Luis had already secured all exits. He had that look. I don't want her to run if she's hurt. Natalie stood by him, rigid and pale. The car slowed in the motel lot. I watched, not moving, muscles tight. No one inside made eye contact. Minutes passed like hours. Then a patrol car pulled up behind. I heard a faint shout from my headset where I stayed on call discreetly. The man was let out. The girl slipped from the back seat, terrified, shaking, silent. Paramedics wrapped her in blankets. Officers escorted her away in good detail. A few minutes later, they returned her to Wendy's with her parents. I didn't leave that booth. I didn't move. Her name was Amelia. She'd been reported missing 2 days earlier from Naples, Florida. Her mother clutched her stiffly, didn't speak, but just sobbed into her daughter's shoulder. The man was not family, not a stranger, just a so-called friend of the family who'd picked her up after school and driven hundreds of miles. Her father hugged me so tight I felt every breath he hadn't taken in horror those 2 days. For a brief second, hope met grief and didn't break apart. I gave my statement to officers, trembling dry-eyed. I showed them the photo, Natalie's notes, the timestamp. They confirmed the girl's signal code on interview with Amelia. They said it saved her life. I kept a faint smile. I wanted to run out and hug her again. I wanted to hug all three, Natalie, Luis, me. I wanted to thank us for noticing, for acting. But there were other customers, other fry orders. The night moved on. People came, people went. That first shift after it all, I sat behind the register and watched cars pull in. My hands hovered near the drawer. My eyes scanned every back seat. My stomach twisted. Wendy sent me a letter a week later. "Thank you for your quick thinking and courage," they wrote. Inside, a $25 gift card. That was it. No paid time off, no counseling, no raise. Not even a public acknowledgement at the store. I stayed another 6 months. I needed the hours. I needed to learn that being brave didn't mean silence. But after that night, I always had someone watch with me at the drive-thru window. Natalie and I swapped evenings. One handled headsets, one stayed inside scanning seats. The staff gave me more trust, not burdens, but I still felt tense. Guests who drove off in Suburbans or SUVs, I watched them. I learned body language again. Too much sweat, stiff backs, lights off in back windows. They stood out. Amelia's parents came back once. Quiet reunion in the store corner. They brought donuts. They hugged me. Said nothing until tears came. They stayed long after close. I locked the door and watched from inside as they left, hugging their daughter. Nothing changes the fear. Nothing erases it. But I learned something. It's been a year now. Sometimes at night I drive by that Wendy's and see the suburban spot. They've painted over it since, but I remember. I still feel the twist in my gut when I clock in. But I do know now. Silence isn't safety. Natalie and I stayed friends. She moved to day shift after drives that wore her soul. Luis got promoted to assistant manager. We meet for coffee sometimes. We still talk about how a signal changed everything. Amelia recovered. Her parents privately thanked us. I think they didn't want anything public. That's okay. That night, bravery didn't need an audience. Sometimes I watch girls in hoodies at the drive-thru window and cringe, but mostly I look for their eyes, for the sign that says they need someone to see. Now I respond. Safety doesn't sound like sirens. It's often quiet, subtle, coded. Courage isn't just bold gestures. It's knowing when to witness, when to whisper, when to act, even when no one else sees. Remember, monsters don't always open doors. Sometimes they slide through in black SUVs. Kindness can save lives, but first you must recognize the signal. Long before that night, I thought I had seen everything the graveyard shift could throw at me. I've been working security since I was 22. Clearline Security, a subcontractor out of Eastern Washington. Most jobs were forgettable: warehouse watches, construction sites, occasionally babysitting some empty office space while the suits slept soundly in their suburban homes. When they offered me the Wendy's job off Broadway Ave, I barely glanced at the details. 4 nights, renovation site, one-man post. Decent pay. I figured sure. Why not? The place was being gutted. New floors, new ceiling tiles, some electrical upgrades. It had that half-finished, half-abandoned look. Wires like tendrils hung down over booths. Insulation peeked from the walls, and the usual fast food smell had been replaced with chemicals and dust. First night, I brought a thermos of coffee, a couple of energy bars, and a paperback I never opened. Spent most of the shift at the back corner booth near the emergency exit, watching shadows crawl along the soda machine. It was boring, uneventful, textbook work. Second night, same. But the third night, something shifted. Not just the job. Me. Something in me changed. I clocked in around 10:30 p.m., signed the log sheet left by the contractor. The only lights still functioning were in the kitchen and above the front counter. The rest flickered randomly like they were half alive. I made a sweep of the perimeter. No signs of entry, no tools missing, nothing moved. I settled into my booth, same seat, same view. It was a little after 2 a.m. when I heard the clatter, faint, metallic like a tool dropped on tile. I stood slowly, flashlight in hand. Maybe the painter left something unsecured. Maybe the floor crew stacked some gear wrong. I walked toward the prep area. Everything looked untouched. But when I turned around, there it was. A single chair pulled from the center table, angled just slightly, like someone had been sitting there watching the kitchen. I stood frozen. I had stacked that chair earlier. I was sure of it. Still, I talked myself down. Back in. Maybe I missed one. Maybe I brushed it walking by. I pushed it. Then I returned to my booth and sipped lukewarm coffee, trying to shake the chill that had settled behind my neck. I should have gone home that night. But I stayed. It was 3:07 a.m. when things got strange. I remember because I checked my phone for the third time in 10 minutes, hoping a podcast would distract me. No service, of course. Building was a dead zone. Then, that chime, soft, electronic. The entrance sensor beeped once like someone had walked in. I sat bolt upright. No one else was supposed to be there. Not the crew, not even management. I walked to the door slowly, eyes scanning. Still locked, glass unbroken. But then, on the prep counter, something caught my eye. Wet footprints, bare, small, leading from the kitchen tile toward the drink station. I stopped breathing. They were fresh, still glistening under the fluorescent hum. I followed them, one cautious step at a time. They ended halfway to the soda machine, just stopped, like the person had disappeared mid-stride. "Clear line 21 to base," or I said into my walkie. "Dispatch, do you copy?" Only static. I turned back toward the kitchen. Something wasn't right. The air felt wrong. Too still. Too heavy. I stepped through the swinging door, and just as I reached for the freezer handle, I heard it. A loud clang behind me. Dining area. I spun. Every single chair in the restaurant and every one I had stacked was now pulled out. My blood went cold. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. I backed slowly into the kitchen and locked the door behind me. No more checking, no more investigating. I waited there, flashlight gripped tight, until the sun came up and the site manager showed up just after 6. When I told the site lead, he looked at me like I was crazy. "Maybe you were tired," he said. "While." "Been there. Construction sites mess with your head after a no," I replied flatly. Someone was in here. No signs of entry, nothing stolen, no cameras active yet, no footprints on the tile except yours. I showed him my phone, the photos of the wet steps, the timestamp. He just shook his head. "Sleep deprivation," he said again. like a diagnosis. I quit the job that morning. No fourth night. Clearline wasn't happy about it, but they understood. Sort of. That same night, they assigned a new guard. Female, mid-30s. I never got her name, but I heard she only lasted an hour. Reported hearing a child's voice whispering from the locked bathroom stall. Said it was singing. When she tried to speak back, it stopped. She left her post mid-shift, crying. Never came back. Renovations finished on schedule. Wendy's reopened 2 weeks later with new tile, new paint, a fresh set of underpaid teenagers manning the fryer. But night staff started talking, lights flickering without cause. Weird cold pockets in the kitchen. One guy swore he heard someone breathing in the freezer when he was alone. No proof, just stories. Whispers. A few employees quit. Most just chalked it up to nerves, ignored it. The kind of thing you laugh about during closing shifts, when the register's balanced and you're mopping under fryers. But I couldn't forget it. Every time I passed that stretch of Broadway at night, I slowed my car. Sometimes I still do. There's something about that Wendy's, something that stayed. That place remembers. 6 months later, I was doing a post at a dental office across town. Easy gig. Same kind of thing. Watch the tools, keep the place locked up, stay awake. It was around 1:30 a.m. when I nodded off briefly, head on my forearm. Only for a minute. When I sat up, heart pounding, I scanned the room. All the equipment in place. Except one of the plastic waiting room chairs was pulled out, facing the window. It could have been a coincidence. Could have been a patient or janitor earlier. But I sat there staring at it for a long time. And I realized something. It wasn't just the building on Broadway. It was me. Sometimes the things we dismiss, flickers, sounds, the feeling someone's behind you, aren't figments of stress or fatigue. Sometimes places carry memories, and sometimes those memories attach themselves to people. Pay attention to the quiet moments, because some echoes don't fade, and some chairs are pulled out for you. I've worn the badge for 6 years now, and if there's one thing I've learned on the job, it's this. Trust your gut, especially on the quiet nights. Not every threat comes screaming. Some just sit still, breathing calm, looking like nothing at all. That night, December 13th, 2023, was slow. Snow on the ground, streets nearly empty. I was wrapping up my shift, parked across from a Wendy's off W. Colfax in Lakewood, a lonely outpost surrounded by closed storefronts and flickering streetlights. Industrial zone. Dead quiet after 10 p.m. I was writing up a loitering citation when I noticed the car, a blue Nissan Sentra, parked backward near the dumpster behind the Wendy's, lights off, engine running. It wasn't in the drive-thru, not in a normal space. No reason to be there unless you were waiting on someone, or hiding. I watched for a few minutes. Driver sat still, mid-30s, hoodie, beard. He didn't check his phone, didn't eat, didn't fidget, just stared forward like he was waiting for a signal. I've seen that look before. That stillness, it's not peace, it's planning. I pulled out of the lot and crept across the street, rolled the window down. "Evening, sir. Everything all right?" He jumped slightly, then smiled. "Yeah, just resting. Long drive. Needed some food." I nodded. "You get food already?" He held up a Wendy's bag like a prop. "Just finished eating." I glanced toward the passenger seat, empty. But behind him, something bulky in the back was covered with a blanket. Not sloppily, tucked in, concealed. I felt the twist in my gut. "You local?" "Albuquerque," he said. "Heading to Denver, my niece's birthday." "Nice, how old is she?" 10. He hesitated. "No, wait, 11? Yeah, she just turned 11. That hesitation was all I needed. That's not a memory slip. That's someone scrambling. "Mind stepping out a sec while I verify something?" His eyes flicked to the mirror. "Is there a problem?" "Just standard. Wendy's staff called in a trespass earlier. Thought maybe you were the same guy. He didn't move. I rested my hand on my holster. Step out of the vehicle, sir. He opened the door slowly, calm on the surface, but I could see the calculation behind his eyes. Predators aren't always loud. Sometimes they're polite. He stood in the snow, breathing slow. I asked for ID. He gave it, hands shaking slightly. Out-of-state license. Everything on the surface looked clean. But that blanket? I motioned toward the back seat. Got any gear back there? Just a sleeping bag. Traveling light, he said too quickly. I stepped forward. My flashlight hit the shape beneath the blanket. Too small for a bag. Too still. Then it moved. A shift. Barely a tremble, but enough. I drew my weapon. Back of the car. Now. He froze. Who's back there? No response. Then from under the blanket, a voice, faint, muffled. Help. My pulse went nuclear. Get on the ground now. He hesitated. I shouted again, and then he ran. Snow crunched as he bolted behind the building. I chased after him, slipping briefly, boots sliding across frozen asphalt. I almost lost him, but a delivery van happened to be pulling in. The driver saw him coming, stuck out a foot and tripped him flat. I cuffed him there by the dumpster as he spat curses into the wind. The smell of oil and salt filled the air. My hands shook, not from fear but fury. I radioed backup as I walked back to the car. My partner arrived just minutes later, along with a cruiser from District 3. We opened the back door gently, as if trying not to break something already shattered. She was 13, taped at the wrists, mouth covered, eyes wide and bloodshot, still wearing her jacket and boots, skin pale from cold, but breathing. We got her untied fast. She cried, quietly, not wailing. Just slow tears. I wrapped her in my jacket. You're okay, I said. You're safe now. She looked up at me. I didn't know if anyone would stop. That line stayed with me more than anything else. At the hospital, I sat by her bedside until her aunt arrived. I don't usually get involved beyond the field work. We're trained to let victim services step in. But I couldn't leave, not this one. Turned out the man was no uncle, not even close. He was a mechanic. Long-haul contracts, slept in his car a lot, kept moving between western states. He'd been questioned 2 years ago in another missing persons case in Utah, but there wasn't enough to hold him. The girl had been reported missing 2 nights earlier in Colorado Springs, taken while walking home from a friend's place. He'd offered her a ride, lied about knowing her cousin. It was all too fast, too quiet. In the back of the car, we found fast food receipts from 3 states, a burner phone, rope, zip ties, all the worst-case scenarios. But we found her in time. She lived. A week later, I passed that same Wendy's after shift. The lot was plowed, salt still crusted on the curbs. Inside, people were eating burgers, laughing, watching basketball on the overhead TVs. Just another Wednesday night. But I didn't look at the dining room. I looked at the back lot, that shadowed stretch by the dumpster, where danger sat in silence, heater running, waiting for no one in particular. I still stop there sometimes, not to order, just to sit, just to remember. Because evil doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's just parked quietly, one lot over, holding a bag of fries. Not all heroes wear capes. Some wear badges, carry instincts, and ask questions when others wouldn't. In a world full of noise, sometimes the quietest places hold the loudest cries for help. Trust your gut. Pay attention. Because for someone out there, the difference between tragedy and rescue could be as small as one curious glance through a fogged-up window.